Am I really gonna do this? What is up, you guys? My name is Miranda, this is the Weekly Fangirl, and welcome to the first edition of FanGirl Reads, where we read Life and Death, Twilight Reimagined. It has been a week since my last video, and in that week I have read the first chapter, and here I am to give you my thoughts. First thing that I noticed is that I don't know about you guys, but when I read the first edition of Twilight, yes, before we go any further, I want to say full disclosure, I have read all 4 books. Not proud of it. It was a long time ago. I have since moved on, become a productive member of society, making YouTube videos in her apartment by herself. You can see I've turned out really well since reading that quadrilogy. Yeah, this is something to be proud of. Anyway, so couple things I noticed about this book, first of which being, in the first chapter of the book, Beau Swan, Beaufort, is it Beaufort? Beaufort? He was named for his grandfather, I don't know. He explains that he is moving to Washington, Forks, Washington, to be with his dad, so that his mom can travel around with her baseball-playing husband. Although, I feel like if they're gender-bending everyone, it could have been her, you know, girl fiance. Like, couldn't it have been Philippa instead of Phil? You know, you give everybody else dumbass names, Stephanie. It could have, you know, made the reason that she divorced Charlie be that she discovered she was a lesbian and now she lives with her wonderful girlfriend slash fiance who's a minor league softball player. Could have been a thing. Missed opportunity, Stephanie. Why? Anyway, so he is moving to Forks, Washington to be with his dad, same as Bella in the original version, but he is so worried about his mom in this, and I know in the original Bella was also worried about her mom and saying how I was gonna miss my erratic, harebrained mother, but in this version, Beau is like weirdly protective of his mom. I like Bates family protective, but right up there. Like, it's really, it's close, because it makes it seem like his mom is a borderline invalid. She can't manage her household, she can't get from A to B without the help of her son, who is her child. And I understand there are households where that's actually a reality and it's sad, but was Bella's mom like that? Did you make the mom more codependent in this version, Stephanie? I don't know. I don't get it. It's weird. Yeah, and it's there's there's this one part which I really didn't like. He's leaving. He's at the TSA post in the airport on his way from Phoenix to Washington, staring at those wide, worried eyes, so much like my own. I felt panicked. I'd been taking care of my mom for my whole life. I mean, I'm sure there must have been a time, probably when I was still in diapers, that I wasn't in charge of the bills and paperwork and cooking and general level-headedness, but I couldn't remember it. Was leaving my mom to fend for herself really the right thing to do? It had seemed like it was during the months I'd struggled toward this decision, but it felt all kinds of wrong now. Of course, she had Phil these days, so the bills would probably get paid on time, there would be food in the fridge, gas in the car, someone to call when she got lost. She didn't need me as much anymore. She sounds like an infant! He's, what, 16, 17 in this story? He's been taking care, the child has been taking care of the parent this whole time. That's weird. His mom is in her 30s, or maybe even 40s. This is really not normal behavior. I don't know. I don't like the relationship between the mom and the son. I mean, it didn't really make sense between the mom and the daughter either, but it made at least a little bit of sense. If I know anything about teenage boys, and this is coming from someone with a teenage brother, if I remember anything of him being like 15, 16, 17, he didn't care. I mean, I'm saying, you know, he was protective, you know, he's the strong one in the family physically, so, you know, he's protective of me and my mom to an extent, but he doesn't play dad instead of playing son. He's firmly in his role of son and child instead of surrogate dad to my mother and parent. This is a really weird relationship. I don't like it. So then, all that traveling and blah blah blah, and there's the description of Charlie, who's chief of police, and we knew that already. Anybody who didn't know that, you know, the dad is the chief of police in Forks. I still don't know how he got that job. If you've at least seen the movies, if you haven't read the books and you've at least seen the movies, I know you're with me in saying, how the hell did Charlie end up as chief of police Even in a town as small and podunk as Forks, I don't get how he became a cop, much less the cop's boss. I don't know. I'm talking about the rain in Forks and how much he hates the rain and blah blah blah. So the gist of the first chapter is that Bo, he comes to the house with Charlie after being picked up at the airport. He hates the house, he hates the weather. This kid is such a whiner, like complaining nonstop, which again is a carryover from Bella, I get that, but just, oh god, he doesn't like the green landscape, like he says it's like an alien planet. He's just so uncomfortable about the whole situation, and I just want to say, he did this to himself. He put himself in this position. He didn't have to go to Forks to live with his dad. He could have stayed in Phoenix with his mom, made her suffer until he moved out of the house, and then she could have gone around with her baseball-playing fiance, and he could have gone off to do whatever, and Charlie could have stayed in Forks and been miserable by himself. That could have been the reality of this story, but instead, we have this because Bo is trying to be a martyr. So, boo-hoo for you, kid. You brought this on yourself. So then he goes to his first day of school. He meets this girl Erica in his English class, and I don't blame you if you haven't read the book or seen the movie, but if you have seen the movie, there's an Asian character named Eric who works with the school newspaper and all that, and so this is the female version of him, and he describes her as a pale, skinny girl with skin problems and hair black as an oil slick. I'm gonna call her Jorah. I know her name's Erica, but just for the sake of the joke, I'm calling her Jorah. Yeah, so then we go on and on through his classes, and then eventually they go to lunch. It was there, sitting in the lunchroom, trying to make conversation with 7 curious strangers, because he's sitting at a table of kids he doesn't know, and except for Erica, for some reason, that I first saw them. They were seated in the corner of the cafeteria, as far away from where I sat as possible in the long room. There were 5 of them. They weren't talking, they weren't eating, they weren't gawking at me, unlike most of the other students, so it was safe to stare at them. Didn't your mother ever tell you that staring is rude? I mean, presumably not, because your mother's an infant, but, yeah, no, even if the other person doesn't stare back, staring is rude. But it was none of these things that caught my attention. They didn't look anything alike. There were 3 girls. One I could tell was super tall, even sitting down, maybe as tall as I was. She looked like she might be the captain of the volleyball team, and I was pretty sure you wouldn't want to get in the way of one of her spikes. She had dark curly hair pulled back into a messy ponytail. Okay, I'm gonna go on record saying that has got to be the flipped version of Emmett Cullen. Another had hair the color of honey hanging to her shoulders. She was not quite so tall as the brunette, but still probably taller than most of the other guys at my table. Just gotta hate on tall girls, whatever. There was something intense about her. Edgy. It was kind of weird, but for some reason, she made me think of this actress I had seen in an action movie a few weeks ago, who took down a dozen guys with a machete. Okay, again, I'm gonna say that is the female version of Jasper. Oh god, oh, here we go. The last girl was smaller, with hair somewhere between red and brown, but different than either. Kind of metallic somehow. A bronzy color. She looked younger than the other 2, who could have easily been in college. The 2 guys were opposites. The taller one, who was definitely taller than me, I'd guess 6'5" or even more, was clearly the school's star athlete, and the prom king, and the guy who always called dibs on whatever equipment he wanted in the weight room. His straight gold hair was wound into a bun on the back of his head, but there was nothing feminine about it. Somehow, it made him look even more like a man. He was clearly too cool for this school, or any other I could imagine. I'm just picturing Chris Hemsworth just sitting in an American high school cafeteria, just chilling, just kicking it with the kids. Maybe if I'm real quiet, they won't notice that I'm an adult. The shorter guy was wiry. His dark hair buzzed so short that it was just a shadow across his scalp, as opposed to, the spiky hair that Alice had. Oh, by the way, the Chris Hemsworth character I'm gonna say is the male version of Rosalie. Totally different, and yet they were exactly alike. Every one of them was chalky pale, the palest of all the students living in this sunless town. They were the palest of all the albinos that there were. They all had very dark eyes. From here, they looked black, despite the range of their hair colors. That wasn't why I couldn't look away. I stared because their faces, so different, so similar, were all insanely, inhumanly beautiful. They were faces you never saw in real life, just airbrushed in magazines and on billboards, or in a museum, painted by an old master as the face of an angel. It was hard to believe they were real. Right, so, okay, vampires are beautiful, humans are peasants. Got it. I decided the most beautiful of all was the smaller girl with the bronze-colored hair. Though I expect the female half of the student body would vote for the movie star blonde guy. Well, People magazine did vote him to be sexiest man alive, so, you know. They would be wrong, though. I mean, all of them were gorgeous, but the girl was something more than just beautiful. She was absolutely perfect. It was an upsetting, disturbing kind of perfection. It made my stomach uneasy. So even beautiful girls make this kid uncomfortable. He's just so angry or annoyed or sarcastic. He's an asshole. This kid is annoying me. I don't like him. They were all looking away. Away from each other, away from the rest of the students, away from anything in particular as far as I could tell. Just staring off into the middle distance, voguing, just looking like... Who are they? I asked the guy from my Spanish class, whose name I'd forgotten. Dude, whose name escapes me. Who are those assholes over there looking perfect? As he looked up to see who I meant, though he could probably guess from my tone, suddenly she looked at us, the perfect one. She looked at my neighbor for just a fraction of a second, and then her dark eyes flickered to mine. I could feel the patches of red start to bloom in my face. In that brief flash of a glance, her face wasn't interested at all. It was like I had called her name, and she looked up involuntarily in response, already having decided not to answer. Never mind. My neighbor laughed once, uncomfortably. Is everyone uncomfortable and emotionally repressed in this book, or is it just me? He muttered his answer under his breath. Those are the Cullens and the Hales. Edith and Eleanor Cullen, Jessamine and Royal Hale. The one who left was Archie Cullen. They live with Dr. Cullen and her husband. Okay, so Carlisle is now a girl, Esme is now a guy, and the names are so absurd, I can't even get over it, you guys. I pressed my lips together to hide a smile. Then I glanced at her again. Edith. Her face was turned away, but I thought from the shape of her cheek that she might be smiling too. That's a weird thing to say. Whatever. So yeah, then they all eventually leave, and he goes to biology. We meet another side character. They got their gender changed. The name's Alan from biology. I'm gonna guess Angela? I remember way too much about the original version of Twilight. It's all coming back to me. So they're in biology, and Edith is sitting with her unusual metallic hair next to the only available seat in class. My heart started pounding a little faster than usual. As if your heart isn't always pounding, it's a heart. As I walked down the aisle to do my required intro for the teacher and get my slip signed, I watched her trying to make it covert. Teenage boys don't know how to be covert, so you're gonna fail at that, just spoiler alert. Just as I passed, she went suddenly rigid in her seat. Her face jerked up towards mine so fast it surprised me, staring with the strangest expression. It was more than angry, it was furious, hostile. I looked away, stunned, going red again. I stumbled over a book in the walkway and had to catch myself on the edge of the table. The girl sitting there giggled. I had been right about her eyes. They were black. Coal black. So gripping. Yeah, so blah blah blah. The teacher signs a slip, gives him the book, all the no-nonsense instructions, and no mention of the full name, and so blah 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 blah. I don't care about that. They're talking about cellular anatomy, but he is too busy being distracted by this girl sitting next to him with her perfect skin, and her hands are in fists, and she's just tense. It's just really... She's looking at him like he's offended her just by breathing. What was wrong with her? Is this how she usually acted? I questioned my quick judgment on Jeremy's sour grapes at lunch today. Maybe he wasn't just resentful. The teacher passes back some quizzes. He finds out that he's been saying her name wrong in his head. It was spelled Edith with a Y, not Edith with an I, as if spelling makes a difference. It's still an absurd name. They're trying to blend in. I don't know why they don't give them, like, fake names. Like, these vampires could have changed their names over the years. I glanced down at her as I slid the paper over and then instantly regretted it. She was glaring at me again, her long black eyes full of revulsion. As I flinched away from the heat radiating from her, the phrase, "if looks could kill," suddenly ran through my mind. She moved like a dancer, every perfect line of her slim body in harmony with all others, her back to me, and she was out the door before anyone else was even out of their seat when the bell rang. I sat frozen in my seat, staring blankly after her. She was so harsh. Maybe because you're just so irritating that she just can't stand the sight of you. I don't know. Blah blah. Oh, there's another side character who had their name changed. Her name is Michaela. I'm gonna guess that's the gender bent version of Mike. Oh. Michaela asks, So did you stab Edith Cullen with a pencil or what? I've never seen her act like that. So basically, the gist of it all is that Edith's behavior is really awkward and weird and not her normal self. That isn't normally how she acts around new people. It's just that Bo, that's the weird one. Buford, whatever. Was that the girl I sat next to in biology? Yeah, she looked like she was in pain or something. Yeah, she probably was, just from sitting next to this uncomfortable asshole all day. I don't know, I responded. I never spoke to her. If I got to sit by you, I would have talked to you. Ooh, getting in there with Bo. Get it, Michaela? Oh my god, the gym teacher's name is Coach Clapp. That's so stupid. So gym is over. They didn't make him play, thank God, or else like 5 people would have been killed and 2 more would have been injured as he tried to play volleyball because he's so awkward and so clumsy. You're just trying to play up teenage awkwardness, but this is overkill, Stephanie. I'm sorry, this is just ridiculous. Final bell rang at last. I walked slowly to the office to return my paperwork. When I walked into the warm office, I almost turned around and walked back out. Edith Cullen stood at the desk in front of me. Impossible not to recognize her tangled bronze hair, like she doesn't own a hairbrush. She didn't seem to notice the sound of my entrance. She probably heard you from down the hall because she's a vampire, hello? I stood pressed against the back wall, waiting for the balding receptionist to be free. She was arguing with him in a low, velvety voice. How do you argue with somebody in a, like a sensual voice? How does that work? I quickly picked up the gist of the argument. She was trying to trade from 6th-hour biology to another time. Any other time. This could not be about me. Bo, let me tell you, it's definitely about you. It was impossible that a stranger could take such a sudden, intense dislike to me. I wasn't interesting enough to be worth that strong of a reaction. No arguments there. The door opened again and the cold wind suddenly gusted through the room, rustling the papers on the desk, waving through my hair. Edith Cullen's back stiffened and she turned slowly to glare at me. Her face was ridiculously perfect, not even one tiny flaw to make her seem human. That's because she's not. With piercing, hate-filled eyes. For an instant, I felt the oddest thrill of genuine fear, raising the hair on my arms. You should be afraid. She literally wants to eat you. Never mind, then, she said quickly in a voice like silk. I can see that it's impossible. Thank you so much for your help. I just imagine that she has a British accent in my head because, I don't know, maybe because Pattinson is British. Who knows? I don't know, but... This is ruining the name Edith for me, and Crimson Peak had just redeemed it, so I don't know. This is, ugh. Anyway, so after the end of all that, he turns in his paperwork to the receptionist, drives home, and tries to think of nothing at all, staring blankly out the windshield. Okay, that is it for the first chapter of Twilight. Life and Death, Twilight Reimagined. My apologies to Stephanie Meyer. Although she should really be the one apologizing to me because... Really? Why did I subject myself to this torture? Who said this was a good idea? Oh wait, that was me. Anyway, so that was the first chapter. Next chapter will be up next week on Sunday. Until then, thank you so much for watching. I have been Miranda. This has been the Weekly Fangirl, and I will see you guys all later. Bye.